Disclaimer. Just because you watch Beastars does not make you a furry. I have only watched the first episode of Beastars on Netflix and I just had to make a video on it. This is something special. And I know I've heard that over and over again browsing through Twitter, but now I've seen it for myself. I've also seen people get called furries just for mentioning Beastars. It may be about animals, but it's got some pretty badass scenes, like this one.
How could you possibly think you could replace Tam?
Actor safety first. That's the job of the stagehands, right?
Just off of the first episode, I highly recommend this show. Or at least the first episode. The first thing I noticed is how dramatic this show is, in a good way. It's not over the top dramatic, it's simply drama. And it's drama done right. And yet again, it has something to say, and it doesn't skimp out on it. But we will get to that in a bit. Let me start with, have you watched or read Beastars yet? If so, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. The episode starts in medias res to set up the events of the episode. It's a bit of a mislead, but the episode doesn't give you enough information to come to a conclusion on really anything. So it may not be misleading. I'd also like to talk about the English voice actor, or acting. Jonah Scott is fantastic as Legoshi. His voice is just a solid fit for this character and everything we learn about him within this first episode.
That was the moment I discovered the small rabbit and my instincts.
I do have to admit, though, that at first I thought it was Johnny Young Bosch. He has a very similar voice, at least within this role. The show's animation, it's a bit odd in comparison to what we've become accustomed to. It's a mixture between 3D and 2D with a low frame rate and has a lot of similarities to the 2016 Berserk. Guys, hear me out. I know we don't talk about 2016 Berserk, and I know it looks terrible, but honestly, I don't think it was A, in the right hands, and B, it just didn't mix well with the art style. Because although Beastars animation can be off-putting at times, it still looks amazing. The style of animation and art do blend together pretty well to create something simply amazing. I've heard that some of the more jarring aspects of this first episode are corrected in the second episode, but of course I haven't seen it, so I wouldn't know. I'm gonna dive in a little bit here. I love the following scene with Tim being chased when he enters a dark auditorium. The style switches up, and to show the darkness of the room, everything is black except the outlines defining Tim, which are a light blue. It makes you feel the pure darkness that he is sitting in while not skimping out on any major details. It allows them to, while being in this dark room, to not add unnecessary light while still displaying the fear and anguish on his face. And the neon red blood shown is just to put the cherry on the cake. This scene is just so aesthetically pleasing. I hate to keep going on, but this is just a solid starting scene for the very first episode. The music speeds up as the despair creeps in and is genuinely unnerving. This is no surprise coming from Satoru Kosaki, the man behind the music for Tekken, High School of the Dead, Haruhi Suzumiya, and many others. This scene also gives way to the main theme of this first episode.
Carnivores are all monsters, every one of you!
It is perfect world building with some very simple lines. There is obviously some sort of divide between carnivores and herbivores. This is further driven on with a bit more detail in the next scene. A group of girls are discussing the murder from the previous night, without a doubt pointing their fingers at the carnivores. So here we can already see that this show is thematically going to dive into racism, or I guess in this case, speciesism. I won't dive into the specifics of the rest of the episode because I don't want to spoil it, but this show hits on a certain level of realism. A kid at their school died, but for the most part the kids are moving on with their lives. Not everyone is freaking out and they aren't necessarily making a big deal out of it. You would think with something like this, it would immediately dive into the mystery and figure out who done it. But it's not. That is a part of it, but at least in this episode, it's a severe undertone. It sets the mood for the episode, but it isn't the most important thing. Next, I want to talk about this scene. This scene is our real first introduction to Legoshi, and it legitimately gave me the chills. This is where the art style and frame rate of the show actually improved a scene. As Legoshi stalks towards Els, I felt uneasy. The way he walks in an irregular way towards her as his head bobs back and forth, the trails from his glowing white eyes trailing behind, this was a perfect setup for a red herring. As he gets to her and reveals he just has a love letter for her. There's a lot in this first episode of Beastars that I want to talk about, but I'll stop it there. For the most part, you should go into this show blind, and you should watch it. The visuals, the music, the story are all a work of art, and I think I'm going to have to pick up the manga once I'm done with season 1, because I don't think I'll be able to wait for season 2. I am an avid fan of shonen, and rarely deviate from it, I'll admit it. But every now and again, something catches my eye. When that something catches my eye, it is truly something special. I cannot recommend this show enough. And I want to know what you thought about it, so let me know below.